Welcome to our Learning Live this morning, Mastering the Basics Part 1. Now, I can't promise you'll be a master of the basics after today. You'll have to come next week for Part 2, and then maybe you'll be a master after both sessions. But today we've got an exciting presentation from Cecilia from our training team, who's going to go over mastering the basics. What are the basics and how can we become a master at them? We will have a chance for Q&A at the end of this. So if you have questions as we go throughout this, if she touches on something you want her to expand on it a little, just put it in the Q&A function. If you put it in the chat, we might miss it in there. So make sure you use that Q&A function. Go ahead and familiarize yourself with that. Look over in the chat options to find that option and just put your questions in at any point. Put as many as you want in there, or if you know a coworker has a question they want answered, put it in there. Let us know what you're wondering about, what you want more information about, any links you're wanting, and we will ask those questions to Cecilia at the very end of the presentation. We likely won't have time to get through all of the questions, but we will make sure we get answers to every single one. So we will follow up with a document after this. We'll send you the recording of this. We'll send you a list of the questions that we didn't get a chance to answer with those answers on them. So if you have coworkers that are unable to attend today, if you watch this and like, wow, I know somebody that would love to be, knowledgeable on the basics too, you can send this recording to them afterwards. You can share this presentation, the slide deck. We'll share all the materials with you, so you can share with anybody who also would benefit from mastering the basics. So without any further ado, let's welcome Cecilia onto the screen and let's jump into it. Thanks for being here.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Ishi, for the warm introduction. It's so great to see so many of you here today. Looking at the numbers, we are nearly at 300 people, which is amazing. So many people that want to learn more about the basics of MyGeotab. So you are in the right place. I can already tell you that. My name is Cecilia, and I'm very, very excited to guide you through this presentation today. And before I go into the agenda and I tell you what we're going to look at today, let me tell you a little story. As you see here on the screen, this story has something to do with Lego. So I'm a Geotabber full-time, but you have to know that I have another full-time job because I'm a mom to a 6-year-old boy. And my boy is currently obsessed with Lego. So he spends all his free time building complex sets. And of course, he needs my help. So this is my life outside of Geotab. And to be fully honest, I'm also tidying up everything so that no one steps on any stray bricks laying around the house. But why am I telling you this? Because this is the approach that we are going to follow to go through the basics of MyGeotab. Geotab and MyGeotab are very similar to building Lego sets. Yes, they are both quite complex if you don't get the basics right, but all these little manageable steps, they add together and they make something quite impressive. And if you're not happy with the castle you built, with the database you've created for yourself, it's not a problem. You can always disassemble and reassemble the castle that really meets your needs. So I hope, and I'm going to do my best for us to achieve this goal, that after today and next week's session, you will be able to build your own castle, know which bricks you need to put in on top of each other to make sure that you have a stable foundation, but also that you get to the very top. So this is going to be our agenda for today. We're going to cover groups, assets, people, map, and zones. You might be saying or thinking, okay, this doesn't sound like everything that I need to know about MyGeotab. Yes, this is correct. This is why we split this session into 2 parts. Next week, next Wednesday, same time, same place, we're going to cover part 2, where we will discuss trips history, rules, events, reports, and we will finish with the marketplace. So as you see, after these 2 sessions, you will be equipped to build your own MyGeotab castle. Let's call it like that. Some housekeeping before we go into the presentation. Ishi covered it really well at the beginning. I'm just reiterating a few concepts here. So if you have questions, and I'm sure you'll have some, use the Q&A tool. It's at the very top of that little side panel in the webinar tool. You will get access to these slides you will get a follow-up email with a link to the slides. So no worries about having to screenshot anything. Everything is recorded and you will get access to it. And questions and follow-up to those questions, it will probably be very likely that we don't get to answer every single question which is going to be asked today, but we will follow up after the session. So just give us a couple of days and we'll get back to you. So without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about myself before we move on to the presentation about MyGeotab. So you might be wondering, who am I? What am I doing here? My name is Cecilia Bandolin. And I don't know if anyone guessed where I'm from, but I'm from Italy. So I lead the training team in EMEA and APAC. And I do lead the teams. However, one big part of my job is also to deliver training. I deliver training to customers, to partners. And as you see here on the slide, I delivered this very same presentation at Connect in Vegas this year. So you will see a little bit of a sneak peek of what we did there and learn from the live event that we had. This is how you say my name, in case you're wondering. So it's Cecilia. But just use the chat and I'm going to be answering your questions there. A little bit more about me. So this is me at Connect this year and last year. I was delivering Mastering the Basics in Orlando and here in Vegas. So it is my baby. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and I'm excited to be doing this here today. As you know, I come from Europe, so I have quite a lot of experience with audiences from Europe, from many different countries here in the region. And I have my Connect experience as well. But I'm always very, very excited about meeting new customers from different parts of the world that use our products, and to understand which type of questions you might have, where you might need help. So please keep the question coming or let the question flow, and we'll cover everything during today's session. Now that you know who I am, what we are going to do today, let's get really started and cover the basics of our amazing platform, MyGeotab. And here, I wanted to give you a little chart here to start with to really focus on what we will discover together in this session. So you see here the data ingestion flow, the data journey from the source, from the collection of this data to where it lands in the MyGeotab fleet management software. Today, in this particular session here, in this training session, we are going to only focus on the destination of the data. So if you were here last week for the session on hardware, you probably have learned a lot about the sources and how the data is collected and how it is logged. Today, we're going to forget everything about that and only focus on where the data flows into and how to set ourselves up for success in MyGeotab. And while I was preparing this presentation, I was thinking how I could make it relevant to as many people as possible, because I have how many? 352 people now listening to me, and you are all from different places. You have different fleets, perhaps slightly different problems, different vehicles. So instead of trying to make it work for everyone, I decided to make up an imaginary fleet based in Vegas and tell their story throughout the session today. This fleet is called Jackpot Guardians. They are based in Vegas, as I just said, and they focus on money transport. They have just recently become a Geotab customer. They want to improve their safety, and they appreciate the security that the system provides. But they are a little bit stuck. They don't know exactly how to start, where to start. So we are going to help them get there. What type of challenges do they have? Some of these might sound familiar to you, I believe. And we will cover them today and in the next session next week. So they are struggling with very high operating cost. I'm sure if I say fuel, everyone will be nodding and say, yep, that's very familiar to me. Also, they have no metrics on stops duration. So their vehicles, they collect the money from the different casinos, but the fleet manager doesn't know how long every vehicle is at which casino. So that's something they have difficulties with. And then last but not least, no clear driver assignment. So they don't know who's driving the vehicle at any given time, and they have no possibilities of understanding or having accountability for damages. So we just said they signed, they are now a Geotab customer, they are very happy with the system. However, they need a little bit of guidance on how to get started. This is Bob. This is the fleet manager at Jackpot Guardians, and he just received this email. It says, "Welcome to my.geotab.com. Click here to get started." And he does click there, and it lands in this now empty new database and wants to to get going. And he has a lot to do. He has a fleet to run, so we want to help him get everything done as soon as possible. So what he needs is the first little brick that he's going to put at the foundation of his Lego castle. And this little brick is groups. So that's the first thing that we are going to cover here in our journey to the top. What are groups, first of all? So let me give you a little definition of what a group is. A group is a label or a tag that you can assign to anything in the database. It can be a vehicle, it can be a user, it can be a zone, it can be a rule. So you will see throughout the presentation that the concept of groups comes up constantly. So I put it at the very beginning because it's important that you get it right, and then that you also do it right from the start. And as the picture here shows you, groups are used in the system to separate different labels or different characteristics of the assets you're managing or the users that have access to those assets. Here, in my example with Lego, of course, you don't want to put everything together. You don't want to have the yellow bricks together with the red ones. You want to keep them separate so that you know where everything is, and it's a lot faster to find it when you have to build something with that little red piece or the yellow one. So the same concept applies to the database, the platform, MyGeotab. You want to keep things tidy and categorized in the proper way so that it is easier for you to manage the database, to find what you're looking for, and also to give the right data access to everyone who needs it. So here we are. They are used to organize vehicles, users, zones. But on the other hand, and this is extremely important, they are used to restrict information, to restrict data access. So if there's one thing I want you to remember today is groups equal data access. We are going to switch into the database for you to see how to build a group, where to find it, what rules and best practices to follow. But first of all, let's link this to Jackpot Guardian. So why would they need groups in their database? First of all, they need groups for their locations. They have two different operations in Vegas. They have the Strip and they have downtown Vegas. So they want to have those two categories in the database and to label the vehicles, for instance, that are primarily operating on the Strip and the other ones that are operating in the downtown Vegas area. Why should they do that? They want to, first of all, have that categorization for themselves, but they also want to restrict access to local managers. So if you are the fleet manager for the Strip, you will only see the vehicles that are under your responsibility. Here we go. So we are now in my training database for today, and I have set up the groups that I was just describing. here we are, for example. So if we say locations, we'll find downtown Vegas and strip operations. So those two are very clearly labeled. They have a parent group, which is called locations, and then two children or two child groups underneath. My suggestion here, especially if you're starting out, is that you try to do this as early as possible. So you think, how is your fleet categorized? What type of policies do you have? What type of groups you might be benefiting from using? Do it as soon as possible or as early as possible into your MyGeotab journey, so that it gets faster and easier to incorporate these groups into the daily operations. Or you do it once and you do it well, and then you benefit from this ever after. To give you another example, just to make this even clearer, what type of other groups could we use? Because if an asset or a person doesn't have to be only assigned to one single group, they can be assigned to multiple ones. So a second example I could think of was driver teams or driver crews. You might have different groups of drivers that operate in different areas or take specific shifts or transport specific goods. So for those use cases, it might be beneficial to have them separated into here, for example, team A and team B. So how do you create a new group? Super easy. You just click on the plus and you see this message will come up, this window where you can put just the name in here. You save. You can also pick a color, add a description, whatever you want. And after that, it will appear in this layer with the possibility of going further down with, again, the same plus option to add subgroups and, again, subgroups of subgroups if you need them. Another best practice here, it might be tempting to create loads and loads of groups at the beginning to really specify every single attribute your vehicles or your users might have. However, I would say keep it as simple as possible. So only create the necessary groups, because we see quite often that it can get very complex if you have a subgroup of a subgroup of a subgroup. If you're starting out, just think, okay, what do I need? What type of reports? What type of rules? How is my fleet organized? And try to get that structure down first. If you need additional complexity, you can always add it down the road. But if you're starting out, just keep things simple. And last but not least, vehicle type groups. This is a very common one. So you have the vehicle type, the generic like vehicle or container, or we're going to look into that in a second. So MyGeotab gives you already some labels that you can use to categorize your assets. However, you can go deeper. You can have additional information that let you then customize your rules for example, specific vehicles, or let you write a different rule for only a category of vehicles. So here we could have vehicle type groups for vans, for passenger cars. Here we go. I have large vans, I have medium ones, and I have secure SUVs here in my example. But of course, you do whatever fits your own purposes, and you can create whatever works for your fleet. When I was saying at the beginning that we do some work for you, here you have already some built-in groups. So if you click on asset information, you will find the asset type with the type of asset in general, and the powertrain and fuel type. This is even done automatically. So the Go device is smart enough that it understands in which type of vehicle it was installed into, and then categorizes that asset accordingly. Great. I hope the first brick was clear, and so we can move on to the next one, which is very, very connected to what we just saw.
however, we are taking the next step, you see, towards the end goal here. So we're going to talk now about assets in the database. And our system is very asset centric. So this is why I decided to start from here. And especially if you have a brand new database, you actually need to start from here because you want to add the information to the system so that the Go device or the source knows, okay, here I have to send all my data into. This is my destination. So we're going to cover the following topics. We're going to discuss how to add an asset, and we will do a little differentiation between adding an asset equipped with a Go device or adding an asset equipped with OEM connectivity. We'll go into that in a second. But we are also going to cover some things that you do later in the lifetime of an asset. So how to use the filters, how to use the configuration, and how to manage all your assets. For example, how to archive them, how to delete them, when to do something. So all of this is going to be included in the next few minutes of the training. Let's start with the basics. So adding a new asset. This is what you need to do at the very beginning of your journey with us. So when the database has been created and is still empty, or later when you add new vehicles to your fleet. So for our example, we want to help Jackpot Guardians who have just purchased 2 new vehicles. One of them has a standard Go device and the other one is equipped with OEM telematics. So in order to do this, let's go into the database and I'll click on assets here. This is the page where everything is set up. You see in my demo database here, I already have some vehicles. If you're a new customer, this page will be empty. But you have straight up here on the right this plus button, and it's very easy to add additional or new vehicles to this page. We're going to cover both options. So the first one is adding a single asset and the second one is adding multiple ones in bulk. The information you need is the same. You will always start with an asset name. And this is up to you. So it can be a license plate, it can be just your naming convention. It just needs to be clear to you which vehicle we are talking about here. So I'm going to write here license plate 123 in my example. And then you see I need the serial number of the Go device. Here we go. So let me just do a quick copy paste. Here we are. So our serial numbers always start with GA at the moment. If you're doing this from the phone, you also have the option of scanning the QR code or the barcode directly with the phone. The next field is the VIN. So this is actually not mandatory. You see, it doesn't have this asterisk. And the reason is that the Go device is able to read this information and decode it automatically from the vehicle. So it will auto-populate after the first calibration is done. So after the first, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes of driving. And here we are. So you see the concept of groups is already back with us. We have to specify, first of all, the asset type that we are adding here. Is it a vehicle? Is it a trailer? You could even create subgroups and say, okay, this is a vehicle, but not just any type of vehicle. It is an SUV. And then you add additional groups. So from our example before, we could say this vehicle here is used in downtown Vegas. I want to assign that group straight away. I hit save. And that's it. So the asset now exists. It has the connection to the serial number. So the next time this vehicle moves and the Go device wakes up, the data starts flowing into this database and starts auto-populating. If you have, I would say, more than 4 or 5 vehicles that you want to add at once, you might want to use the multiple asset option. So you have here a sample file that you can download. Very, very easy. It follows exactly the same structure that we saw just now. Let me just put it on the right screen. Here we are. The only difficulty on this page here is that you have to be careful what you actually edit, because this is also a sheet you can edit. However, the real information that you need to input in MyGeotab needs to be added here. It says add multiple assets. And the fields are the same. So asset name, serial number, VIN, groups, anything. That's what we just saw just a few seconds ago. So you fill everything in. You can have the whole sheet full of assets. There is no limitation in terms of numbers. And then you upload it back, and all assets are then added in bulk. All right. So after the vehicle has been added, it will pop up here and it will show the odometer, the VIN, again, as soon as it is driven. And we need a little bit of time for the device to wake up, to calibrate, and then to start sending this data, which is why we always recommend after the installation to go for a quick test drive. And if you remember from my example, so Jackpot Guardians bought two vehicles. One had a Go device, but the other one is can be connected even without the Go device. It's a very new vehicle, so it has native telematics in it, and Geotab is integrated with that particular OEM brand. So what's the difference there, and how can you add OEM telematics from here? It is getting easier and easier also because we are seeing that OEM telematics is really picking up. So I want to show you one thing, a little trick, a little beta feature that you can already use to make your life a little bit easier if you're using OEM telematics. So this has to be done on a profile basis. So you need to do it on every single user in the database if you want to use this functionality. So you click on profile, you click then on beta features, and here you find a list of features that are not 100% ready, but they reached a really good development level. So we already put them up there for our customers to test them. This is truly important to us. We want to see if they work as intended, but also we want to collect your feedback because we are still in the development stage, which makes it a lot easier to implement additional feedback on the go. So in here, you'll find a list of different functionalities that are currently in the making, but can already be tested. And one of them, you see, it's called OEM activation process. So if you have OEM vehicles and you want to add them to the database without having to leave this page, then this is exactly for you. So we're going back to our asset page. Oh, perfect. Thank you. We have quite a few people here today who are already using OEM telematics. So I think this will be very useful. We do exactly the same process. So you see here, we go and enter an asset name, OEM asset test. We don't have a serial number in this case because this is not a Go device. However, in this specific case, we will need a VIN number. I'll just pick the first one. And you see that the system is smart enough to say, is this an OEM telematics asset? And you say, it is, yes. You add your groups and so on, and then you save. The system will automatically detect if this vehicle is compatible with your region and with the with that specific brand, and offer you a subscription plan. You select it, you see who your partner is, and you click on save. That's already the activation. So the next time you drive, the data from your vehicle will start flowing into MyGeotab, which makes it a lot easier than in the past to add an OEM asset to here, to the page. What else can be done here, or what information is available? There's quite a lot on this asset page, to be honest. I just want to show you one example here, and then you can go into your database and see for yourself what information is available for your own vehicles. So if I click on any name in blue on that asset page we were just now, I have this asset edit page at my disposal. So here I can manage my asset, but I can also see some important KPIs, important information about the asset. Here in this first chart here, I have the name, I have the VIN number. So this is what I was saying will auto-populate if you have a Go device in your car. And it will not only auto-populate, it will also translate or decode that VIN number into a make, model, year. Here you have the asset name. You see, if I'm an administrator into this database, so I can even change it. So if you have a change of license plate and you use license plates to categorize your assets, you can come back here and change it. We have the asset type groups, we have the powertrain and fuel type group, and then here at the bottom, all the groups that have been already added to this particular asset. So we have, it's a car, it's from the sales department, and it drives for the downtown operations. You see where it last was, you see the odometer and engine hours, and some basics about fuel level or energy consumption if this is an electric vehicle. Now let's move on to this new tab here in the middle, the maintenance one. This will warn you if there's anything you need to be aware of about the health of this vehicle. So this one has a critical work request, and I could click on this and go into the maintenance side of things. I'm not going to do this now because this would sidetrack us. However, we have a maintenance session coming up in the next few weeks. I highly recommend that you go and attend that one if you also want to master the maintenance side of MyGeotab. Last but not least, we have a third tab here, devices and setting. Here you have your serial number, you have your rate plan, and if you have additional devices such as a dashcam, you would also see everything on this screen. So it makes it very easy to manage everything that has been already added to the database. Now, if we go back to our friends of Jackpot Guardians, they need some help managing their assets. They have frequently some vehicles that go offline and they cannot understand why. So they want to understand how MyGeotab can help them tackle these challenges for them. So here on the asset page, you will see this little widgets at the top. These are going to warn you if there's anything that needs your attention. Anything that is offline or is about to go offline will pop up here in the at the very top of the page. This is a very small database, and here everything is quite all right. There is just one vehicle which is currently offline. However, you might have seen one of these other tiles in your database. So I wanted you to be aware of them and their meaning. You will find just in a couple of seconds a link to a guide that explains in detail what every single tile means. I think like my takeaway for you here is pay attention to these tiles because they can make your operations a lot easier. They warn you proactively if, for example, an installation was not done right and the device is too loose and is vibrating or moving around. Or they warn you if there is liquid intruding into the device, which could cause malfunction. We warn you if the asset battery in the vehicle is too low. So there are quite a few common use cases that we've seen over the years that now are being proactively pushed out to you so that you can be informed at the right time without having to do a proper investigation. Everything is here right in front of your eyes. And what else can you then do on the asset page? The asset page should, in an ideal scenario, always mirror the state of your fleet. So if you sell a vehicle, it should leave the asset page. If a vehicle was in an accident and needs to be replaced, it should also be mirrored on the asset page. So in this case, we are going to talk about removing and archiving vehicles and how to do this properly. To make sure that you don't have any gaps in your logs, that you have all the information that you need at any given time without having a full list of vehicles that are not being used or they are not active any longer. So you can use the searcher at the top to search for an asset name, for a VIN, for a serial number. So you can use a lot of the information that you input to find what you're looking for a lot quicker. Or you can use the group filter or any of the filters here in the side navigation. This will make it possible for you to just do a quick search and say, okay, these are the 5 vehicles that I just sold. Let me remove them from the database. So let's imagine we have these 3 that were sold. So I want to make them historical. I want to archive them. You see, I selected them and I have now some additional options that weren't here before. So I can say I want to archive these vehicles, and the system will ask me, okay, do you want to archive them? Yes or no. They will disappear from the main view. However, billing will continue. So to stop the billing, you have to get in touch with your partner or with Geotab directly if you're a direct customer. What's the difference between delete and archive? The difference is that the archiving option makes the data historical. So you can see report on it here in the database. This is extremely important. If you have any data attached to a vehicle, do not delete it, archive it. The deletion is something that cannot be retroactively changed. So if you delete something, the data is gone, is scrapped from the database, and you won't be able to report on it at a later stage. These actions can all be also done on a vehicle level. So if I click on this one and I go to my 3rd tab, devices and setting, you see you have the swap, remove, and these 2. This will make the vehicle historical by archiving it. The swap, just so that we're here and we can mention it, is if you keep the vehicle but you change the device. So you just basically change the source of the information. You say, okay, this device had to be replaced. For example, there was liquid intrusion. I take it out. I put another one in. You put the new number in here and the information remains in one place. You don't have any gaps. Everything is very neatly arranged and searchable just under that license plate that you created at the beginning. All right, let's move on to the next Lego brick in here. So now that we've understood how to structure the database by using groups, and we've understood how to add assets on the asset page and to manage them, we are going to see how to manage the users, drivers and platform users that are then going to use the database here. So in the case of Jackpot Guardians, they want to give access to MyGeotab to different type of users. So they have mechanics, they have drivers, they have fleet managers, and everyone should be able to perform their jobs in MyGeotab without having access to things that they don't need. Can this be done? The answer is yes. And we're going to see how to do that in just a few seconds, because we're going to talk about security clearances, and then we are going to go over the steps of adding a user or adding a driver. So first of all, those people, those mechanics and fleet managers, they all need different type of access to the system. The mechanic might need a very deep access into the maintenance part of the system, whereas he might not even need the rules or the map. A fleet manager needs an overall overview. It needs access to every single page. So how can that be done? The answer is security clearances, and I like to describe them as a set of keys. So if you're the owner of your house, you're the administrator here of the database, you have your keys and you can open any single door. It's probably going to be a very heavy and thick set of keys. Then let's imagine we have a gardener or a housekeeper or your mother-in-law. You don't want to give them every single key to every single door. So MyGeotab gives you the possibility of either using some pre-made set of keys or make your own set of keys. This is all managed here under people and then clearances. And you see that, again, we've done some of the homework for you. So these 6 set of keys or this 6 clearances, they exist from the start, and you can just assign the different users to the different level of access that they need. However, if you say administrator is too much but supervisor is not enough, you can always customize these clearances. You see, you click on the clearances that you want to change and you click on add sub clearance. You are going to be able to name it. So we could say admin no maintenance, for example. So an administrator who should not have access to this menu item here, maintenance. We are going to use maintenance as our keyword here and then deactivate everything that does not fall under the that falls under the maintenance umbrella. If you were to do it from here, of course you could, but this is a very, very long list. And I know that a lot of you struggle sometimes with understanding what the different features mean and what exactly they control. So I have a document for you that I'm going to share here in the content section where you find the different definitions. So this is the document that you'll find. It has the identifier, it has the description of what it does, and very important, it lists in which of the clearances of the standard clearances this one is included. So if you want to create your own clearances and mix and match, this would be the place where I recommend that you start. Now let's move on to how to add a user or how to add a driver. So we've created our own clearances. Again, as for groups, like do this before you actually go and add users. You save yourself some time. But after you've created your clearances, you have your specific set of keys, you can move on to this page here, users and drivers. This is very similar to the asset page. So it lists everyone who's already a user, who already exists on the platform, and lets you create someone new. So I'm going to do that for you. I'm going to click on the plus. And here there are a few fields that are mandatory. The first one being a username. So we could say, I'm going to use my Geotab email address, and this is going to be my username. However, we know that drivers especially not always have an email address. So for those cases, you could also use something like this. So it doesn't need to be an email address, which is why you see it's in brackets. First name, last name, those are mandatory fields. Then we move down to data access and groups. This is which group should this person belong to? What type of data access should they be given? I now have access, or I'm giving access to this person to everything, so the whole company group, but perhaps that's not intended. So let's go and change it to say, okay, this person that I'm creating only manages the large ones. Here it goes. Now you see I've changed the group belonging to large vans, and the data access was updated accordingly. Now, last thing that we need to do on this page is change the security clearance. It's under default user for now, but we can change it to whatever this person needs to be seeing in the platform. And here, just a little summary for you, because I know that a lot of our users struggle with this concept. So what you see here under security clearances, this will change your menu. It will change the number of features that you will be able to see and touch and what you will be able to edit. Here, the groups, this will not change the menu. This will only change the amount of information that you're able to see. So it could be that two users with the exact same clearance, for example, administrator, can see different vehicles, different information on the system. That's totally fine because it orientates, it is based on what they need to do and what is relevant to them here in MyGeotab. And if this user is a platform user, then I'm done. I can just click save, and the system is going to send an email to this person. If I don't select an email, then the system is going to warn me that I need to set up a manual password because, of course, there is no possibility for the system to send out a notification to this person. If the user is a driver, we'll also need to specify this. And I wanted to open a quick parenthesis on keys. So we want to talk about driver identification. 3 possibilities. The first one and the most simple one, if you click here and you set it up, you save, this person will be able to log in via the Geotab Drive app. So that's for free, and that's the easiest way for you to have driver assigning themselves to vehicles. Second one, if you want more automation, we have an IOX NFC that you can link to the Go device in the car. And we have also these fobs with a number. You would put the number in here. The driver enters the car, assigns themselves or like swipes the fob, and then MyGeotab knows, aha, this driver is Tim. He entered the car at 8:30. Third, we now also have the identification via our GoFocus Plus and GoFocus Pro. So you can either use the fob, it has an NFC reader built in, but you can also use, if you want, the Smart Driver ID, so the facial identification. Last 10 minutes of our webinar and last topic for today. You see, we're nearly, let's say, at midway to our amazing castle and amazing final destination. So we want to discuss map and zones before I let you go. This is the core of any telematics platform, of course, and it also sounds very easy. It is very simple from a definition point of view. However, on the maps page, there are quite a lot of functionalities distributed here and there. So I wanted to make sure that you have a full overview of what you can find there. The main goal of the page is to give you live visibility into the real-time location of your fleet. And in order to do that, we are going to discuss what you can find on those different menus here on the map. So let's move in here, and let's first of all see what's available, because again, the map is something that you can adjust to your own needs, starting here with the type of map, the satellite or the standard one. For example, I like this one more, but I know especially if you work around buildings and you want specific borders, then the satellite might be better for you. Then you decide, do I want to see labels? Do I want to see the name of the driver? Yes or no? Do I want to see zones? So this is all up to you. Go and find out for yourself what works best in your case. You always also have the option to save your map view. You see here at the top with this little star, you have the option to say, okay, this is what I want to see every time I open the map. And not only the geographical location, I also want all filters, the sorting, the layers. I'm just going to call it test. And I can set it as default. This will become my new home page for the map. The map moves and adjusts the list of vehicles in here. Remember, then from here, you can always move to other parts of the platform. Or if you don't know exactly where a vehicle is, which of course can happen, you can use any of these options here to search for it. We want you to find what you're looking for as quickly as possible. You have, as we saw earlier, a whole list of filters. So we have assets and we have a site navigation for filters as well. So quite a lot for you here to discover and to test for yourself if you're not familiar with all of these functionalities. I wanted to highlight one thing because it gets asked quite a lot. If you don't know where or which vehicle it was that was at a specific location in the past. So let's say you got a claim that someone from your company was driving too fast. You just have the timestamp and you have the location, but you don't have the license plate. With the area activity, you can actually find out. So you find that specific point on the map. You can search it. You can search for an address. You click on area activity. And you can then decide to go back. You can only search for a maximum of 3 days, but they can be customed. So we could say I want to go back to March 11th to let's say 12th. Here we go. And the system will find out if any of my vehicles were at this specific location. It will tell me exactly the whole trip it did and the speed, and you will have the possibility to rebuild or reconstruct that trip. It basically links the live location with the trip's history without you having to know which vehicle to look for. And you probably have already noticed this really big colorful shapes on my map. What are those? So this takes us back to one of the first challenges, if you remember what we said at the beginning. So one of the challenges that Jackpot Guardians had was that they didn't know the stop durations at the different casinos. So they wanted to find out, to have more exact reportings, because instead of just saying, oh, look, the vehicle is stopped here, they wanted to know it is actually stopped at a certain location, a certain point of interest. So all these points of interest can be created and saved in the system as zones or geofences. So these are digital fences that you can recreate here in the database, and they help you know exactly if the vehicle was within this point of interest, within these fences, at which time, how long it stayed there, what was the duration of each stop, when it exited again. So you have full transparency into the location and stops of your vehicles. In this case, I have downtown and I have the strip, because as if you remember from before, these were my operations, but I also created the Bellagio as one of my points of interest. It can be done directly from the map. You see, we have this little flower here, and it's super, super easy. So you just create the borders outside or around the point of interest, you name it, and you will have the option to see it on the map from that point onwards. If a vehicle is stopped within one of those fences, it will even have a specific symbol. We haven't gone into those yet, but they are here and they're very well documented. So you see what they mean and what the different vehicles are doing at that given time. So if a vehicle is within a zone, you will notice it from the map itself. It will have this little shape similar to a flower around it, and you will be able to to see straight away that it is inside a zone. Now, I know I'm very short on time, so I only have 4 minutes left. Ishi, do you want to go into the Q&A? What do you think?
Well, thanks for the presentation. I mean, that was great information. I'm glad you went as long as you did. I think you covered things really thoroughly. You know, I always enjoy seeing a question come up and then you speak right to that question and answer right away. And that was the case with a lot of our questions. I was going through there for a lot of questions, putting answers on there. And just for everybody, I mean, thanks everybody for staying. I mean, you guys stayed the whole time. You guys have been here for the full hour with us. Thanks for your attention. And I hope you learned something today. But remember, next week is part 2, so don't miss part 2. I mean, that's how you'll really become a master. You're just a half master right now, so come next week to be a full master, just like Cecilia is. So I did have there was quite a few questions when you were talking about OEMs. You mentioned OEMs. You were asking, what is OEMs? What does that mean? And and somebody also asked a follow-up question of, are you getting the same data with an OEM that you are getting with the Go device? So if you can speak to those kind of two real quick.
Yes. So OEM is basically using the native telematics. All modern vehicles already have some telematics in them. So instead of installing an aftermarket device, we are able to connect to the APIs of those OEMs and fetch the data directly and ingest them and harmonize them into MyGeotab. Now, the question is, if the data is the same, this is a really good question. And the answer, it always depends. So Geotab has different contracts and agreements with a lot of the OEMs out there. And they all vary a little bit. So I would say every OEM gives us GPS, gives us odometer, gives us fuel level, but there are a lot of differences around those 3 basic data points. Some OEMs are really good at providing maintenance data. Some other do a little bit better in other areas. What we could do, because this is a whole new topic for itself, I think we can take it away and share some additional resources on OEM telematics, and then you can always reach out to us or to your partner to find out if the vehicles in your fleet are eligible and compatible with the solution.
Yep, we've got lots of information about this. So like with all the questions, we will follow up. We'll make a document. We'll get all the answers to all the questions. We'll put some of those frequently asked questions on there. We'll send it to you along with the recording of this so you can go back and watch it or share it with anybody that's interested. But everybody, thank you for your time. Thank you for the presentation, Cecilia. That was a great to learn, all of those things with you. And come next week so you can really
Exactly. Come back next week because we'll cover what you see here on the page. So trips history, rules, events, reports, and marketplace. We want all of you to become masters. So I hope you can make the time.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.